me ask you something. Have you ever felt like we're doing all the things, tracking the metrics, writing the reports, telling the stories, but somehow nothing really changes? Welcome to Ideas for Impact. This is a space where we dig deep into what impact actually means, beyond the buzzwords, beyond the headlines, beyond the well designed slide decks. This is the channel for all things impact and sustainability. So let's talk about impact. It's one of the most overused words in business today. You hear it everywhere. Companies are touting their programs, they're promoting their initiatives, they're releasing their latest impact reports. But here's the uncomfortable truth we all have to face. Many organizations, including nonprofits, have become experts at documenting change without actually creating it. And they're inside something that I like to call the impact bubble. The impact bubble is this illusion of progress. It's what happens when we believe we're doing more than we actually are because we're not looking at all of the various aspects of that process of creating impact and ultimately those outcomes. Inside the bubble, there's a flurry of activity, right? There's impact dashboards, there's activities, there's glowing case studies, even ESG commitments. But the deeper systemic change, that tends to be missing because we're not looking at it and we're not measuring it. It's a space where effort is mistaken for effectiveness, where telling a good story actually replaces asking the hard questions. We see it all the time. Very nice reports, big numbers, big purpose statements, even sometimes metrics. But when we scratch the surface, ask more questions, look at more reports, we'll find a lot of problems that still exist for an organization or for a business or even a fund. Take a typical sustainability initiative as an example. A company might be tracking how many solar panels that they've installed in a particular location, but not whether their emissions have gone up or down. Or they'll highlight the number of farmers in their supply chain, but never ask if the actual farming practices have actually improved. This isn't an oversight, it's a pattern that a lot of companies, organizations, and teams have fallen into. And it is becoming dangerous for us all because it actually convinces us that we're making more progress than we actually are. And this shows up across all sorts of industries. And manufacturer celebrates training thousands of workers on safety, but workplace injuries don't actually decrease. A tech firm funds a coding bootcamp, but never checks if graduates actually land a job after that bootcamp. A food company invests millions in sustainable agriculture while still depleting groundwater and degrading soil. The metrics say success, but the reality actually says otherwise. The impact actually points in a different direction. Even well-meaning organizations fall into this trap. Many organizations do. For instance, take this as an example. A grocery chain may want to improve access to fresh food. They open stores in underserved communities in a particular geography, but they don't actually consider why people lack access in the first place. It isn't just access to that food from that food being in a grocery store. It's about also transportation. It's about shift work. It's about cultural food preferences. There's so many more dynamics and paradigms to having access to things like fresh food. So the stores underperform. And only after failure do they listen to the community they were trying to actually support and help. Listen, there's entire teams, organizations, companies, industries that actually operate within these kind of impact bubbles. And, take renewable energy. Success is measured a lot of the times in megawatts installed. But what about asking questions such as who actually gets access to clean power? How reliable is the grid that we're building and implementing in a particular region? What environmental toll comes with the building of that particular infrastructure? What are the emissions associated with that? Not just with the final product, but actually with the build of a particular infrastructure project. And look, it is about asking the right questions, and companies are starting to ask better questions in many of these scenarios. We have companies and organizations looking to tools such as theory of change to actually be and other impact frameworks to actually help them define, the full pathway to actually the impact that they're trying to create more diligently and hopefully in the long run more effectively. But most are still chasing the optics. Some companies are starting to ask better questions. Ultimately, it does start with that, asking better questions. Most are still chasing the optics, but there's hope because there are companies that are breaking out of this impact bubble. A textile company realizes their sustainability efforts were stalled. After years of measuring their own operations, they start tracking their suppliers' operations too. The result, more progress in 2 years than in the previous decade. A bank stopped counting loans and started asking why small businesses were failing at increasing rate. Turns out financial literacy networks and market access matter just as much as the access to that capital. When they changed their approach and build wraparound supports to that capital, more businesses were able to survive over the long run. Some school systems are moving beyond just test scores and are measuring things like civic engagement, volunteer hours, entrepreneurship, and long-term well-being for their students. Because we now know that true education and true resilience as a human being is more than just grades in school. But what these examples all illustrate is that real impact happens when we ask better questions and that we continue asking questions. And it happens when we stop just measuring what's easy and start measuring impact, start measuring what matters. And that often can be really hard to measure at the beginning. It helps us shift our mindset around what it is that we really need to do. And that mindset shift really enables us to embrace systems change, allows us to embrace complexity. It allows us to look beyond surface level statistics and measurements and lets us dig into those bigger systems change outcomes and bigger long-term geographic and community and societal and behavioral changes in context. Because for those of us in impact, we know that true impact isn't about how many people participated in an activity. It is about what actually changed in their lives for the long run. It's not about how many trees were planted. It's about whether that ecosystem that they were planted in is recovering over a certain period of time. And it's not just about access, it's about equity, it's about outcomes, it's about long-term resilience. So here's the challenge for all of us, including myself. Are we measuring what's easy or are we measuring what's actually meaningful? Are we tracking activity or are we tracking transformation? Are we looking or are we trying to look good or actually do good? At Ideas for Impact, that's what we're here to explore, not just what businesses claim to be doing, but what really works and what really matters. Not just the latest trend, although we will talk about all the latest trends, but the deeper truth behind impact that matters. Because in the end, the question isn't whether we've reported that impact. The question is, have we created impact in this world? So please, if you like this video, subscribe, like, comment, and please share. We can't wait to see you in the next video.